I found out my brother wasn't actually my brother. I took one of those DNA test kits online. You know, the ones people get out of curiosity or for fun. It wasn't for anything serious. I just wanted to know if I had any Viking blood or some distant relative who fought in a war or something cool like that. The results came back a few weeks later. I remember opening the email while half asleep, expecting nothing shocking. But right there, in bold letters, it said, "You are a genetic match to both parents." Okay, fine. Then I scrolled down to my list of matches, and I froze. My brother, Matt, was listed as no shared DNA. 0%. I was confused. I thought maybe I entered something wrong, or it was some kind of error. So I asked Matt if he wanted to take one too, just to see if we could compare properly. He laughed and said, sure, even joked about how maybe he was secretly adopted or from outer space. 2 weeks later, his results came in. No match to me. No match to our parents. At that point, it wasn't a glitch. I sat down with mom and dad that night after dinner. I showed them the results on my phone, expecting confusion, maybe concern. But instead, I saw something else. Guilt. They exchanged a look. That kind of silent conversation you only understand after being around someone for decades. Then mom set her fork down, sighed, and said, "It's time you knew the truth." Matt wasn't adopted from an agency, or from a hospital, or anything official. He was their nephew, their sister's son. Specifically, my Aunt Grace's child. The same Aunt Grace who had a mental breakdown 20 years ago and vanished without a trace. I was only 3 when she disappeared. I barely remember her. Just bits and pieces. Her laugh, the way she always brought me candy, and how her hugs lingered like she never wanted to let go. The story I'd always been told was that she ran off during a psychotic episode, that she couldn't handle life anymore. They said she'd been battling severe postpartum depression, and one day, she just disappeared. That was it. No police report, no funeral, just silence. And in that silence, Matt became part of our family. I was stunned. Matt had no idea. As far as he knew, he'd always been our parents' child. My brother, my best friend. We shared everything growing up. Bedroom walls, chores, fights, secrets. And now, he wasn't even technically my brother. But that wasn't the worst part. That night, after everyone went to bed, I couldn't sleep. Something about the whole thing didn't sit right with me. Why lie for so long? Why never tell Matt? I went digging. We had an old chest of family photos and documents in the attic, the kind of chest you only open when someone dies or gets married. I pulled it down and started going through it. Photo albums, letters, birthday cards, hospital bracelets. Then I found a small, leather-bound journal. It was dusty, the pages yellowed and brittle. On the inside cover, in delicate handwriting, it read, "Grace Miller, property of me." My aunt's diary. Most of it was normal. Notes about motherhood, Matt's birth, sleepless nights, little scribbles about feeding times. But towards the end, the entries got strange, paranoid. One entry said, "Mom keeps telling me I'm imagining things, but I saw them watching me, from the car, every night, at the same time." Another, "They said I'm unfit. They said Matt isn't safe with me. But I know what this is. They want him. They've always wanted him." And then, the final entry. 3 weeks before she vanished. "They're going to take my baby. If I vanish, they did it. They'll say I went crazy, but I'm not crazy. They're lying." I read that sentence over and over. They'll say I went crazy, but I'm not crazy. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept staring at the page. My brain wouldn't shut off. If what Grace wrote was true, then my parents didn't just adopt Matt. They took him, and they buried the story of her breakdown to cover it up. The next morning, I confronted Mom. I didn't show her the diary right away. I just asked one question. What happened to Aunt Grace? Her lips tightened. She left. Why? I pressed. Why would she leave her child? Her home. She wasn't well, honey. I pulled the diary from my pocket and dropped it on the table. Mom went silent. Her hands trembled as she turned the pages, recognizing the handwriting. When she finally looked up, tears were streaming down her face. "I begged her to get help," she whispered. "I begged her." Here's what she told me. Grace got pregnant young. The father was unknown. Grace never told anyone who he was. After Matt was born, things started to unravel. She became paranoid, secretive, convinced that people were after her baby. She wouldn't let anyone touch him, not even Mom. But Mom said it wasn't drugs, wasn't alcohol, just fear. Unrelenting, crushing fear. One night, Grace showed up at our doorstep, barefoot, sobbing, clutching Matt. She said someone had broken into her place, that they were going to take him. Our parents kept her and Matt overnight, promising to help her. The next morning, Grace was gone. Just gone. No note, no goodbye. But Matt, he was still there. And they never looked too hard for her. That was the truth I had to swallow. Or was it? Because I didn't believe it. Not entirely. Something still didn't add up. Why keep it all secret? Why never report her missing? So I did something I probably shouldn't have. I found the address of Grace's old apartment building. It was still standing. Now condemned. I drove 2 hours to get there. Inside, it was a wreck. Broken windows, graffiti, rotten wood floors. But then, I found something. In the closet of what looked like a nursery, beneath some warped floorboards, I found a shoebox. Inside it, photos, Grace holding Matt, Grace smiling, Grace crying, and a cassette tape, an old voice recorder. I drove home shaking, popped it into an old player we had. Grace's voice filled the room, tired, frantic, whispering. If anything happens to me, I didn't leave willingly. They think I'm sick. They think I don't know. But I do. My sister, she wants my son. She told me he'd be better off with her, that I wasn't stable. But she's wrong. I would never hurt him. Never. Then a pause. Then sobbing. They're going to make it look like I vanished, like I ran away. But if you're hearing this, please believe me. I didn't run. I sat there frozen. My mother didn't just take Matt, she manipulated Grace, gaslit her into thinking she was unfit, then took her son and erased her existence. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't confront them again, not without proof. It could cause a complete implosion of my family. But Matt, he deserved to know. So I told him everything. I showed him the DNA results, the diary, the tape. At first, he was in shock, then denial. Then came the tears. He stayed silent for a long time before saying just 4 words. We need to find her. We filed a police report. Finally, 2 decades late, but better than never. We gave them the tape, the diary, everything. They reopened Grace's case, started combing through old records, neighbors, witnesses, friends. A week later, they found human remains buried behind that same apartment building. Dental records confirmed it. It was her. My Aunt Grace never ran away. She never abandoned her son. She was murdered. The investigation is ongoing, but my parents, they've lawyered up. No one's saying it out loud, but I know. Deep down, I know. They didn't just take Matt. They silenced her to keep him. Matt is different now. Quieter. Distant. I think he's still processing what it means to be raised by your mother's killers. We visit Grace's grave together sometimes. He brings her flowers. I bring her an apology. And every time I stand there, I hear her voice in my head. If I vanish, they did it. She knew. She always knew.